only they were hijacked and we were not.
By the grace of God.
And so during the petitions, the prayers of petition, we prayed for the release of the prisoners of the TWA hijacking. Not just us, but everybody in the room. The next day, we came back to Italy. In Yugoslavia, you can't get any information about anything. Never.
Oh, we don't read the language.
So by the time we get back to Rome and we call Liz Elaine and we say, what is happening? See, because of this TWA hijacking, all our pilgrimages were going down the tubes.
Well,
you know, I mean, we were getting destroyed.
Who wanted to die?
So we called up and said, Liz Elaine, what's happening with the pilgrimages? She says, well, things are getting better since they released the hostages. And we said, what do you mean, release the hostages? He said, well, it's strange the way it worked. Reagan had said something that really antagonized the terrorists, and all negotiations were broken off. But then the very next day, they were released, just like that.
What can prayer do?
Praise
well, okay.
God. Okay.
We're in Medjugorje. Now, what you would believe with things like that happening in our life, I would finally admit and believe that she's appearing, right? But see, I'm partially Protestant in a lot of ways. I hate to say it, but people are important to me. People are very important. I'm human, you know? And some people were not acting exactly the way I judged they should. There were some people with TV cameras and they were smoking in the room where our lady appeared. In the room of the apparition, smoking in the room was terrible. And they're allowing it.
And the people that got in was based on who you knew. If you knew the priest,
so crazy stuff was going on. I'm cold. I'm wet. I'm wearing an Irish sweater, you know, which you can very rarely wear, and I'm freezing. The sheets were wet. They had a toy there, decoration that was supposed to be a heater.
Piece called a space
didn't work.
Didn't work. All it did was
people
look
are
nice.
Pushing a very kind, you know, everybody thinks all Croatians are very nice people, and they are. Went like this as we're walking to the bus, and I fall into a ditch. I'm not feeling too good about this whole thing. We get back to the room, my teeth are chattering, and I say to Bob, she's not appearing here, if she ever did. And he said, if she ever did, my poor husband.
All these beautiful gifts that we had been given.
I said, and when we get back.
No, we were giving a talk.
Oh, yeah, Saturday, Holy Saturday, we were chosen to give a talk.
We're giving a talk, Holy Saturday.
I said, and
I'm going to expose her. I said, well,
I'm going to expose this place.
I said, well, that'll cut down our talks quite a bit.
And I said, self-righteous, you know, nothing like a self-righteous person. I said, well, I didn't give everything up to lie, and she's not appearing, and I'm telling everybody she's not appearing. So poor guy, you know, what's he going to do?
See, I'm only 35 years old, and I have this white hair.
He's really only 25. He just wants you to think he's older. Anyway, we are going to go to Father Yozo's church.
Okay, no, we went to Mass. The last Mass that we were having was on
Wednesday.
Spy Wednesday, last English Mass, and then all the Masses would be in Yugoslavia.
Croatian.
So Father Philip Pavic, he's the American priest there. He said to everybody, we're running short on hymnals, so would everybody share the hymnals?
Songbooks, you know.
And as the groups came in for that last American English Mass, they just piled in there, and people were grabbing seats. And so we were together, but then there was a young man who was not of our group. He sat next to Penny, and then at the time they had a row all the way up the side, and there was another whole group of people.
They'd have a bench on the side, you know.
So that one young man from over here gave us his missal, and we said, no, share it with us. And it seemed like
I went, no, you. And
he didn't say anything, so we assumed that he was German or some foreign language.
Blonde boy with blue eyes.
Good looking.
And you know, when there's not an American Mass, we'll go to a Croatian, or if we're in Germany, we'll go to a German Mass.
We'll go in Italy, we'll go to Italian Mass.
So Mass is a Mass, right? So I figured he's probably German, you know. But so he goes like this. And so we're singing, right? And so there's this boy.
So she's got the young man next to her.
A doll, just a doll. So I put my arm around him too.
Dirty old lady.
It's such a sweet thing, you know, like this. And so that he
tall. Slim.
And when I went to do this, to pull him closer to read to be able to sing with us, I thought, Richard?
Now, Richard is our son. He's the one who died of an overdose of drugs in 1971. And this is 1987, probably, 88.
And I looked at this boy. My son was not tall. He was very well built, stocky. This boy was slim, a lot like you.
Fair.
You could have been you. Slim, tall. Everything my son was not in looks, this young man was. So I thought, oh boy, this place is really getting to me. And so we continued.
Did the Our Father.
And then we did the Our Father.
We were holding hands.
Holding hands. And I thought, Richard? And I looked at his hands, and this boy had long, slim fingers. My son had a mitt like I have. I have a very big hand. I said, oh God, there's something wrong with me. And then there was the sign of peace. And
he just kind of embraced her. And there were only two people that ever had embraced her that way, and one was her son, Richard, and the other was our grandson, Robert.
So I said to him, what is your name? And he said, Richard. I looked for the blonde boy.
He said, I really am not supposed to be here. My group's on the other side of the church. But as we were coming in, that young man told me to sit here, and we looked. He's pointed over to where that young man had been, the blonde boy, and he was gone.
So, Saturday?
Well, Saturday is when we're given the talk, but we then went to Father Yozo's church in Tialina, I think. I don't remember how you pronounce it, but anyway, way out there. And there were busloads of people going out there, and by the time we got there, everybody was getting off the bus, and I saw the young blonde man, and I said, honey, your friend, the young blonde man, is outside.
So I ran
outside, we all did, the two of us looking for him, and by this time...
And he had been telling everybody where to go.
Everybody was in the church, and just the drivers and the guys were out there smoking, so we couldn't find him. But during the entire talk of Father Yozo, we were looking for this young man, and we didn't find him. Well, the next day we gave our talk, and obviously she was not going to blitz Medjugorje because through our son Richard, Our Lady, that's the only way that she would have believed.
He was the only way. She knew that only my son at that point could get to me. And he did. I knew it was my son. And so I shared this, and this very tall woman, I can't stand when tall women cry. I don't know, I have a tremendous respect for the tall.
It's okay if you're short, but not tall.
If you're short, I can understand you cry, but when you're tall and you cry, or you're a man and cry, it kills me. And she just went like this, and and she was crying. She said, I was feeling so guilty because I was feeling the same way as you did. Thank you so much for witnessing.
So then now, we're finished with the talk. And we decide that it's just time for Bob and Penny. We're just going to go up to Mount Krizovac, just us, without pilgrims, because we had spent the entire week with the pilgrims.
Helping.
We just wanted to have time with Our Lady and time just on our own up on the mountain. And so we started heading up the mountain, and we see the blonde boy.
And he said to me,
first he said, I understand you found your Richard.
I understand you found your Richard. And I said to him, what is your name? And he said,
Michael.
Do you believe in the angels? I do. What won't they do to help our disbelief? Every one of us at some time in our life stops believing when we need to believe. People say, oh, you came back to the church when your son died. I said, no, I left the church when my son died. And I'm so typical. We're so typical. I'm sorry. When we need Christ the most, is that when we turn to him? I don't buy that. No. That's when we get active. That's when we do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. No. We're really helpless.
You let me down. I'm taking over in my life. No more will I believe in you. No more will I listen to you.
He never let us down. He never let me down. That I know now. God has always given me everything I asked for. So now, like Saint Therese, I never asked directly from him. I always asked directly, and he gave me what I wanted.
Through his mother.
Now I go through his mother. Because she is, see, not that Christ would ever let anything bad happen to me, but sometimes things that are not so pleasant.
There are times when if you really ask him for something, he'll let you have it. And it may not be the best thing, but if you want it, it's like they said, they want kings, Lord. Okay, let them have kings. But they don't need kings, Lord. Let them have kings if that's what they want.
They'll learn a lesson.
They were not happy with kings.
That's Old Testament. They'll learn
but
a
Our
lesson.
Lady, Therese says, Jesus cannot resist me. He will do anything that I ask of him. Therefore, I don't ask him anymore. I ask his mother, who in her motherly love will only give me the things that are good for me. Another one of our weapons, Mary.
You know, I never knew Mary. And as much as not knowing Jesus in the Eucharist practically ended my life, because I think if he hadn't had enough of us growing apart and not knowing it, see, that's the other one, kids. He's so subtle. We were a couple, we still talk together.
We were the best of friends. We've always been the best of friends. But we never talked. We didn't grieve together over our son's death.
We didn't speak about what was hurting us, what was killing us. And if that had continued, if Christ had not interfered is
with
the word.
a 2x4.
You wouldn't be seeing us now. God knows where we would be. I know.
We would be a statistic. Another couple that got divorced because his son died of an overdose of drugs.
Do you think that there is power in our sacrament and in us being one in him, in his church? We'll give you some statistics, psychology statistics. The statistics are that 2 in every 3 marriages will end in divorce.
That's statistic. If people, you okay?
Yeah.
If people go to church together,
some church,
if people worship together, 1 in 50 will end in divorce.
If you
go to church together as a family, 1 in 500 will end in divorce. I have the actual statistics in the book, so I'll give you the...
Then if you...
But if Christ is in the center of your life as a married couple, 1 in 1,500 will end in divorce. Now, and I'm not promoting marriage encounter, but if you look at the symbol, the marriage encounter symbol shows a heart with 2 rings and a cross. The 2 rings are the wedding rings, and the cross is that which locks them in together. So if you look at that symbol, the 2 rings which can be pulled apart, and then you put that cross in between the 2 rings, it cannot be pulled apart. And that's where 1 in 1,500 will end in divorce.
And if for no other reason, I'm going to work for Christ. I'm going to work for his church. Because the more I fall in love with Christ, the more I fall in love with my husband. You know, before Jesus came into my life, I loved my husband in a very selfish way. I didn't know it. See, again, it's the subtleties. The enemy never gets you like God, you know, with a 2x4. He gets you with subtleties.
Everything was an invoice. If he does this, I'll do that.
If I stay young, he'll never cheat. If I am good to him, he'll never leave me. You know, what kind of a relationship is that? And yes, when we went on Marriage Encounter, I learned that the most important thing in my life was my husband. And all I wanted to do was to make him happy. That's it. Simply make him happy.
But that's not what happens. Everything changes. You see, it's like we were on Mother Angelica's a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about abortion, pro-life and abortion. And a man called up and he said, you know, there really are so many other issues, starvation, all these different things, problems, human problems. She said, yes, but there is a basic thing, and the basic thing is respect for life. And if you don't have respect for life, all of these things will follow. They have to follow. And we become the culture of death. And it's the same with our marriage. Unless we put this relationship first, nothing else matters. Nothing else can stand up to it. But with this relationship together, nothing can separate us.
We're going to have to go to
5
Mary
minutes. Let's get to Mary.
But
what?
No, 5 minutes for Mary? Are you serious?
Excuse me.
I beg your pardon?
Who said that? Who said that?
Mother? I can't even say hello to my mother in 5 minutes.
So we'll just continue about the angels.
There was another situation with the angels. You know, in your life, you can be dumb like me, and God can take care of you. You know, I think that's why he chose me to talk to you, because believe me, there's nobody in this room that I can look down on. I just can't, because I'm really very simple.
I saw a little person here before.
It's impossible. Even 11-year-olds I have to look up to.
Maybe.
You know, anyway. What was that? Tell me about the story about it. Oh.
Because I got one if you don't.
Okay. We were in the world, we were manufacturers at the time, and Dad was going to, I thought my children had never seen the South. We were from New York, and as far as the farthest they'd gotten was to New Jersey, to our country home. They'd never been to the South. And Bob and I had traveled all over the country because of our business. And so I thought, let me take them on a business holiday. See, God chose us also because we're workaholics, you know. So I thought,
so if you'll work for man, you'll work for God.
Yeah, only 10 times as much. I didn't know that one. So anyway.
But Mancuso's retired into this bookstore ministry.
That's another story. Anyway, Mama and it was decided that I would drive Mama and the children down to Richmond, Virginia, leave them there, to Washington, D.C. Then we were going to do a tour of Washington, D.C. I would go to Richmond, Virginia, work with the 2 department stores, come back to Washington, D.C., and then, you know, we'd resume our holiday there in Washington, D.C.
The only thing is she didn't allocate any time for sleeping. It was just driving.
So while I was working, I was fine. I get in the car to go from Virginia, Richmond to Washington, D.C. I have now been up 36 hours. And I found myself, well, I didn't know, but I would drop off to sleep, and I would hear as clear and as sharply as you will hear my voice, Pauline.
That's her name.
That's the name. I was baptized, Pauline. And I would get up like this, and I was going over this way, onto the other side of the highway. And the angel kept doing that to me all the way from Richmond, Virginia to Washington, D.C., and that's the truth. At the time, I didn't know it was my angel. I thought it was my father, and it could have been my father from heaven, but I think it was probably my angel. You are always in the presence of your angel.
Always. Your angel is always with you, no matter where you go. So be very careful where you take your angel and what you expose your angel to. I have a prayer. I want to share a prayer. 1 minute. This is a prayer that we say on every time we go in a plane, a car, on a pilgrimage bus, anywhere. It says, Dear Lord Jesus, we ask you to send all the guardian angels to form a protective circle around the car or the plane or the boat, with St. Michael the Archangel, St. Michael, St. Gabriel, St. Raphael in charge. Angels in front of us, angels in back of us, to the left of us, to the right of us, above us and below us. We ask for Our Lady of Guadalupe to cover us with a mantilla, Our Lady of Loreto to sit on top of the bus or the plane or the van with the Holy House and the baby Jesus, Our Lady of Czestochowa to keep anything away from us that would harm us in any way, physically, spiritually, emotionally, or mentally. Bring us safely to our destination so we can glorify your name. Now, we got this at the cave of St. Michael in Italy.
We embellished it a little bit.
And then we started to research St. Patrick, and they were at about the same time, St. Patrick in the cave of St. Michael, and we found that St. Patrick had a prayer that went like this: Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right hand, Christ on my left. There's nothing coincidental.
And look at the treasure that we have.
We will see you in an hour.
Eat hearty.
Well,